Broadcasting from the Community Service Radio Studio at the Pop Music Academy in Sellersburg, Indiana, welcome to Dangerous Subversive Radio. Prepare to open your mind and question everything. Episode 16 of Dangerous Subversive Radio. Time marches relentlessly on. The sun is back down below the horizon for my drive to work. Fall is on the way, and I cannot wait. Fall is my favorite time of year, hands down. I'd like to give you an update on our broadcast antenna. It is here. It's sitting in a cardboard box right over there.
Yeah, that's where it's at, Tim.
Yeah. You just have to build the tower, mount the antenna on it, and this will be Dangerous Subversive Radio.
Yes, sir. That's all that needs to happen.
Yep. So, like I said again, it's going to be 1700 on the AM dial, and we chose AM for a reason. The same reason people are now going back to vinyl from CDs, and that is that when you talk about voices, AM sounds better, sounds warmer, sounds
It just
cozy.
does.
It just does.
It just does.
So that's why we could have gone FM, could have gone AM. We chose AM. It takes us back to our childhoods. So, but like I said, before you go over your radio and try to tune us in on 1700 AM, it's going to be a very small, low-powered broadcast station.
Yeah, the footprint's not that big, but I'm considering an application for high power, and we'll talk about that more later.
Ooh, all right. I'll be interested in hearing about that.
Woohoo!
Okay, so let's go to the show, as our good friend Russell Allen Martin likes to say. True story. A young grade school student is just making his way through another grade school day when another student puts a piece of paper on his desk. The teacher happens to pick it up, unfolds it, and sees a drawing of two stick figures, one of which appears to have a gun, with a little dotted line leading toward the other figure on the page. And the world just comes apart. This is, of course, terroristic threatening. No names on the note. No indication of who's doing the threatening, who is being threatened, and the young man whose desk it is says, "I didn't draw that. Somebody else put that on my desk." And the teacher says, "Well, I believe you, but there's nothing we can do." He is immediately suspended, while there are investigations and hearings and appeals at every point in the process. Everyone admits that he didn't do it. But we have a zero-tolerance policy for gun violence, so there's nothing we can do. He was eventually expelled, driven out of his school for doing nothing. But there's nothing we can do. We have a zero-tolerance policy for gun violence. That's just the world we live in. So what was learned by this? The student, the young man who was victimized by this, what did he learn from this? Don't count on anyone fighting for justice for you. Oh, sure, we'll fight for social justice, and we'll fight for environmental justice, and we'll fight for economic justice. And I've always said several times on this program that whenever you put any adjective in front of the word justice, you're no longer talking about justice. And I've never really explained that, and now I will. Justice can have many different, it can take many different forms, but what it comes down to is the right thing being done. But the minute you slap an adjective in front of there, no matter what adjective it is, the answer is always the same thing. And that is taking some of yours and giving it to someone else. A redistribution of wealth, a redistribution of rights. And when it comes to real live honest to God justice when you're accused of doing something you didn't do. Well, like I said, don't count anyone except maybe your parents fighting for justice for you. And this is, so that's what the kid who was victimized by it learned. What did the kid who actually drew the note or drew the picture, what did he learn? He learned that the consequences are going to be so out of joint, so blown up, so out of proportion to what you actually did. It's better just to keep quiet and let someone else take the rap for you. And this is the idiocy of zero tolerance policies. Zero tolerance for drugs. So a student gets expelled for giving a Tic Tac to their classmate. And each one of these examples I'm about to tell you are real examples from the real world. A young woman has her lunch made for her father and her. She accidentally takes the wrong lunch bag, and there's a butter knife in there. So she takes the butter knife to her teacher, and she is expelled because they've got a zero tolerance policy for dangerous weapons. What did she learn from that? Don't do the right thing. A zero tolerance policy for sexual harassment. So a kindergartner gets expelled for giving their classmate a peck on the cheek. Kindergartners don't know what sexual harassment is. They don't even know what sex is in kindergarten. Well, at least in most places. So I seriously doubt that a kindergartner can be guilty of deliberate sexual harassment. And yet that's what we've come to. Zero tolerance policies require no thought. They require no consideration. They require no deliberation. Have you ever seen the statue of Justice? She is blindfolded and holding up a scale. Well, zero tolerance policies, in my never to be humble opinion, chop off one half of that scale. Here's another thing they do. When the bad guys abuse something, instead of punishing them, we ban that thing among everyone else. Instead of punishing violent gangs, instead of driving them out of our schools, we ban their colors for everyone else. So now, because the Bloods wear red and the Crips wear blue, you're not allowed to wear either one of those colors. The example of guns is almost too easy. The bad guys abuse the guns, so we take them away from everyone else. What we're really doing is we're taking little pieces of our culture, little pieces of our society, and one after another, we're giving them to the bad guys. So what really happens is that with zero tolerance policies is instead of punishing the guilty when they do wrong, we punish the innocent when they don't. Another true story. This happened when I was must have been about 12 years old. Riding through the Grand Valley of western Colorado at night, I was in the left-hand side of the back seat, and my younger brother, who was about 2 years old at that time, was riding in the right hand of the back seat, unhappy about something because he was caterwauling without end. And it just so happened that the moon was in the sky on his side of the car. So you'll have to excuse me as I try to reenact what was done. But this was my little brother, 2 years old, on that night so long ago. Ah! Ah! Moon! Now, how could that kind of a distress be alleviated in the fraction of a second? Unless, of course, as we all know, there really wasn't any distress. He was doing what 2-year-olds do. At some point, they learn that caterwauling and crying and making lots of noise, that's how you get what you want. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, my day job, which I'm trying to change, But right now, my day job, I work as a nurse in a small psychiatric hospital. This hospital actually has 2 children's units, one for children up to 12 years old and one for middle school aged children. And I can tell you, I work on an adult unit here. The children's unit is right there. You can hear what goes on in both of these units. And let me tell you, the filthiest, foulest, most abusive language you will ever hear in that hospital comes from, want to take a guess? No, it's not the middle school children. It's the little kids, 12 and under. When they get bent out of shape, you hear the S word and the B word and the C word and plenty of F words. But here's the thing. If you watch them while they're doing this, half of them, you don't see any real rage on their face. They are simply reproducing learned behavior. Somewhere along the line, someone taught them that using abusive language is how you get what you want. That's all there is to it. Now, gratefully, most children grow out of this. Evidently, some people don't. And they simply carry these tactics into adult life. So when this group over here screams that this group has done something which is horribly offensive to this group over here, and this group might not even be speaking up about it, but this group tells you that you're being horribly offensive. When the names of sports teams are horribly offensive to the minorities they're named after. When products, name brands on products are horribly offensive to minorities. And it's always minorities. So I finally figured this out. Naming anything after a minority is offensive to that minority. So what is the solution? Okay. From now on, we'll only name things after white people. And then we won't be racist anymore, right? Right. Just something to think about. And now for something completely different. I must give you a warning. In the very near future, I'm going to use some perfectly accurate words which describe certain aspects of human physiology. I believe most of you can handle it. Got on Google the other day, and I Googled, how many genders are there? Anybody want to take a guess at the number? Jackie, what would you say?
Oh, man, I couldn't tell you.
63 genders.
Let me think. Hang on. Let me think.
Yeah.
2.
No.
Oh, wait, how many?
63.
Oh, my.
63. Now, what intrigues me that 10 years ago, there were 2. At least that's all you ever heard about or heard from. Now there are 63. And I don't even think they're done counting, because a year ago, there probably weren't even half that many. But now the number's up to 63. Here is a chart diagramming some of them. I actually prefer this chart, but I can't really take credit for that. Yes.
So for our radio listening audience, Tim, what are we saying here?
You see a male symbol, a female symbol, and 61 snowflakes of varying design. I just thought that was really funny. You know, up until a couple of years ago, we could have had the fact that there are only 2 genders confirmed by none other than eminent science authority Bill Nye the Science Guy. You see, a couple of years ago, he did an episode on genetics, and he had one of his young assistants do a segment talking about genes. And she said that our sex is in our genes, and that our chromosomes, and we've got a 50-50 chance of being male or female. Not a 0.63% chance of being 62 other different things, but male or female. Now, he must have figured out that he was wrong at some point, because he actually went back and edited out that segment out of the recordings of that episode. But this is science, so let's now we've got 63 different genders, and let's take a look at the science behind this. Now, believe it or not, it is possible to have more than 2 genotypes. And when I say genotype, some of you may know what that means, some may not. Your genotype is what your genes actually show. If you're a male, your genotype is XY. If you're a female, your genotype is XX. Now, it is possible to have other combinations. You can have XXX, and they call those hyperfemales. It is possible for a person to have XXY. It is even possible for a female to only inherit one sex chromosome, so she's an XO. There was one case where a young person appeared to be male in every aspect until he went through puberty and started menstruating through his urethra. And when they investigated, they found out that he had a perfectly complete, perfectly functional set of female reproductive organs. So it hasn't always been male or female, strictly XXXY. But these other genotypes they all have a genetic basis. Now we have 63 genders when 10 years ago there were 2. So how could science support this result? Well, I can think of 2 possibilities. One, there have always been 63 different genders. And for thousands of years, they've been going to bathrooms that do not match the gender they identify with. And for thousands of years, they have all suffered in silence without a single one of them ever speaking up until the last several years. Or B, something has happened to the human genome all in the last 10 years to mutate our sex chromosomes without affecting any one of the 21 other chromosomes we have, and mutate them to the point where we have 63 different combinations of X and Y chromosomes. If that's true, you have to ask this question. If you could gather together several individuals, let's say 100 individuals, of exactly the same genetically based mutation, one of the 63, get them all together in one place, would they all describe themselves to be the same? Would they all say, well, yes, I'm a gender fluid, pansexual, homo-romantic on Tuesdays and Thursdays? How likely do you think that is? How likely do you think either one of those scenarios is? I think it's highly likely that if you went in and actually looked at their sex chromosomes, it's almost certain they would be either XX or XY. Still, how do you account for 63 different genders? I would like to propose a third explanation. The definition of idiosyncrasy is a thought, a mode of behavior, or a way of thought particular to an individual. Huh? If we go back to the very important scientific precept, Occam's razor, which states the simplest explanation tends to be the correct one. Doesn't this kind of fit the bill? And idiosyncrasy is not pejorative in any way. It is simply descriptive. I'll tell you what, everybody's got idiosyncrasies. I'll tell you what my idiosyncrasy is. 3 piercings in the ear and stockings with seams that run up and down the back on women. Now, so, do I get my own gender for that? And, more importantly, which bathroom should I be allowed to use on any given day? Now, before I go any further, let me go over this one more time. People who advocate for other people using the restroom which matches their phenotype, and that is, genotype, chromosomes, phenotype, appearance. people who advocate other people using the bathroom that matches their birth certificate, they are not discriminating against transgender people. They are discriminating. They're not discriminating against you. They are discriminating against rapists and child molesters pretending to be you. Because when you let anyone into any bathroom, you let them in too. And keeping them out of opposite-sex bathrooms keeps women and children safer. But just for the sake of argument, let's say it doesn't. Let's say that your gender comfort trumps the safety of women and children. I actually participated in a debate about this on social media, and one person who I used to work with, pretty good friend of mine, she said, well, I've gone into the men's room when the women's room was too full, and there was no harm done whatsoever. And I can only assume that she meant that there would be no harm done whatsoever to any man who would happen to walk in. Here's the thing, though. If she can go into a bathroom with a gender incongruent with the one she identifies with without any harm whatsoever, then any transgender person can do the same. And I'll tell you why. Every bathroom has two zones. There is this zone right here where everybody washes their hands and checks their look in the mirror. And there is this zone. Once you go into this zone and close the door, you are completely enclosed, completely screened from the general public. You have complete privacy. Now, not every bathroom has these, but every bathroom has these. So here's my question for you. If you are made so uncomfortable being in this area with people whose genders are incongruent with your own, that you simply cannot tolerate this situation, then how are you going to tolerate them here on a city bus, or here on an airliner, or here in an elevator? So when people get bent out of shape about this, I have to wonder, knowing what I do about children, about toddlers, the way they behave, I have to wonder, are they really harmed? Are they really hurt? Are they really injured? Are they really made to feel bad? Or are they simply recognizing an opportunity to exert enormous influence with very little effort, against which any resistance is going to be viewed in a very unfavorable light? When people argue that the name of a sports team offends a certain group of people who never actually spoke up, has anyone been offended? Has anyone in this group actually been hurt or harmed or made to feel bad? Or are the people in this group simply recognizing an opportunity to exert a great deal of influence without much effort, against which resistance is going to be viewed in an unfavorable light? Just something to think about. Here's something else. I come to your gay wedding. We're looking at the cake, and we're kind of talking about it, and you say, yeah, the bakery we went to was owned by a Christian. She didn't want to bake this cake for us. She said it would violate her religious principles. Now, tell the truth, we could have gone to another bakery. There's a bakery 3 blocks over that's owned by a gay person. We actually, you know what? We could have even asked her to bake us a regular wedding cake and then just take the hetero cake topper off of that and put the homo cake topper on it. But no, we're going to stamp out this discrimination. So we took her to court. We sued her, and we made her violate her religious principles. How about them apples? Okay, having proven what a mean, nasty, vindictive person you are, do you really think I'm going to want to stay at your wedding? Well, me, you probably wouldn't care about. But what about this? What if the bakery you'd gone to had been owned by a Muslim? Do you think they're going to be any more desirous of baking a gay wedding cake for you? And if they aren't, are you going to be just as determined to force them to violate their religious principles? So, was it really the discrimination you were going after, or was it the Christians? Now, there's, as Dr. Phil says, no matter how flat you make a pancake, it still has two sides. And there is another side to this issue. A couple of years ago, just after same-sex marriage was made legal in all 50 states by the Supreme Court, we had a county clerk by the name of Kim Davis in a county in Kentucky who refused to grant marriage licenses to gay couples because she said it violated her religious principles. So no different from the bakery owner? I think so. Her decisions, her actions affect people's futures, affect people's legal statuses. I think there's a very big difference. If you're going to talk about religious liberty and granting marriage licenses to gay couples, if Kim Davis, if same-sex marriage violates her religious principles, she is perfectly religiously free not to marry someone of the same sex. And if doing her job violates her religious principles, she is perfectly religiously free to quit that job and find one that doesn't. Just something to think about. And there's no good way to segue from that into the topic of diversity. I've been reading about diversity lately and how critically important it is to our society. But there seems to be two different kinds of diversity. There is natural diversity, which is a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds, a bunch of ethnicities living together in the same society. And then there is the politically correct diversity, which states that if a country is 70% white, 17% Hispanic, and 13% black, then the law profession must be 70% white, 13% black, and 17% Hispanic. And the police force must be 70% white, and 13% black, and 17% Hispanic. And the tailoring industry must be 70% white, and 13% black, and 17% Hispanic. And the construction industry for the same way. And all Jewish delicatessens must be 70% white, 13% black, and 17% Hispanic. And all sports teams must be 70% white and 13% black and...
Okay, Tim.
Yeah.
Tell me what we're looking at.
Yeah. We're looking at pictures of 5 different sports teams, maybe one white face among all 5 of them. Where is the outrage for diversity among sports teams? You know, I spent 10 years working in an emergency room. I went to the slide a little too quickly. And what, for the radio audience, we're just looking at an emergency room. When you go to an emergency room, you're going to find several different types of people doing their job. You're going to find the doctors, of course. You're going to find the nurses, and you're going to find what we call the techs. In a nursing home, they would be called nursing assistant. In an emergency room, they're called techs. We had a woman there when I worked there. I'm not going to say her name because she didn't ask to be on this program, but she was an African-American woman. She was an absolute professional. Anticipated what you needed half the time before you even knew yourself. Had the equipment ready, got the procedures done. Like I said, total professional in every way. Now, a diversity advocate would tell you, we need her because of the color of her skin. I would say we need her because of her experience, her professionalism, her people skills, her work ethic. Oh no, we need her because the color of her skin gives us diversity. Now, which one of us do you think is going to get called a racist? So, why is color diversity so important? Well, according to the Center for American Progress, a diverse workforce is integral to a strong economy. Among their top 10 economic facts about diversity in the workplace, a diverse workforce can capture a greater share of the consumer market. Okay, so the last time you bought a TV, what was the ethnic makeup of the workforce that produced it? You don't know? Wasn't that part of the reason you bought it? Wasn't that part of the reason they captured your share of the market? I'll tell you, if you absolutely believe.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
Breaking in. What about textile?
What you mean, like it should be 70% white and 30% or?
Well, let's look at this. So you've got these sweatshops. Isn't everybody buying these clothes that came from these sweatshops?
Seems to me, probably.
Run with it.
Well, and sweatshops are absolutely a horrible thing, right? Let me ask you this question. Somebody opens up a textile factory in the town next to yours. And they say it's a great job. It pays $2 an hour. Are you going to go apply for that job? Why? But let's say that you're making $1 an hour, and that's the best thing you can find. Then you're going to go there because it's better than what you have now. And maybe this happens in other parts of the world, but in the United States, no one forces you with a gun or a knife to take any particular job. You take a job because it's better than anything else you can find. And people go to work in sweatshops because it's better than what they found before. I don't know if that's where you were wanting me to run with it or not.
It was interesting. I was just thinking of, who works at the sweatshop?
Minorities, mostly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what happened to that 70% and this other? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. What happened
see where
to
I'm
it
going.
there? Okay. Well, I have one last thing to say, and that is that if you truly believe that the more homogeneous a society is, the less its chances for prosperity and success are, then we must all pray for the poor Japanese, who evidently have no chance for any prosperity or success ever. Well, Potpourri Part 2 completed. Next week, haven't really come up with a title for the show, but I hope you come back for that one. I hope you bring some friends. I hope you grow to be 100 million strong. But right now, I hope you go to Amazon.com and buy this book, Dangerous Subversive Heresies. Almost forgot it there. I hope you have a good night.